Good evening, and welcome to the regularly scheduled City Council meeting of Wednesday, August 8th. Please stand for this meeting is now called to order. Please stand by for the Pledge of Allegiance that will be led by Pack 1615, Troop 1615, I'm terribly sorry, and the invocation immediately following. Thank you.
Marcus, you want to call it? The hand salute?
And salute. Follow me in the pledge.
Pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray. Dear God, we thank you for the life and liberty that you have provided to us here this evening and in this country. We thank you for the opportunity we have to vote and select our leaders. And I ask that you would give this body wisdom as we lead this city. I thank you for keeping safe our first responders, and I ask that you would have your hand of protection over them. In Jesus' name, amen.
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 Roll call, please.
Mayor Woolley,
Here.
Councilmember Ayers,
Here.
Councilmember Milan,
Here.
Councilmember Moffitt,
Here.
Councilmember Olbrich.
Here. Madam Mayor, I move we amend the agenda to add the approval of the attorney's recommendation for the case discussed in closed session.
Support.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Ayers,
Yes.
Councilmember Milan,
Yes.
Councilmember Moffitt,
Yes.
Councilmember Olbrich.
Yes.
Mayor Woolley.
Yes. And the motion carries. Thank you.
So that we amended the agenda, right?
Now you would,
Now we would discuss the.
Next item on the agenda is consideration of approving the consent agenda. The consent agenda includes the regular City Council meeting minutes from Tuesday, July 17th, and the minutes of a special City Council closed session held on Wednesday, August 1st.
Mayor, I move the consent agenda be approved as listed.
Support.
Are there any questions, or comments, corrections? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Milan,
Yes.
Councilmember Moffitt,
Yes.
Councilmember Olbrich,
Yes.
Mayor Woolley,
Yes.
Councilmember Ayers.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Mr. Smith. So we amended the agenda to vote on the approval, correct?
And you can do it after the consent agenda.
Okay.
So this would be the next motion.
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve the attorney's recommendation as discussed in closed session.
Support.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Moffitt,
Yes.
Councilmember Olbrich.
Yes.
Mayor Woolley,
Yes.
Councilmember Ayers.
Yes.
Councilmember Milan.
Yes.
And the motion carries. The next item on the agenda is consideration of approving the proposed request for proposals for planning services for the city of Clawson. The city of Clawson is currently looking to have an RFP for planning services, and that document's been reviewed and vetted by the administration. And we are looking at different versions and selecting one of those versions. Anyone move to support voting on that item?
So can we make comments now, or do we have to make the motion? Mike?
The motion, in order to have discussion.
Okay.
that's the motion.
Your Honor, I move that option to be determined, is that legal? Be chosen as the official request for proposals for planning services for the city of Clawson.
Okay. Any support for that?
I'll support.
Okay, discussion.
Now we can have some discussion on that.
Okay. So, in reviewing the several proposals, there were three altogether, right?
There was one main one, and the other two were merely for outline to see if there was anything that you wanted to add to it. if anything was missing or any suggestions, ideas, but the option A was the main one that has been vetted by everyone.
So I liked option A, just my personal opinion. I liked option A, but I felt like there were a couple aspects for the other proposals that should be incorporated. And then I also, it talks a little bit about the process, and I don't know if we've sort of completely nailed the process of, once we get the RFPs in, how we're going to review them. So I feel like there's some more work to be done. And if I'm correct, this is a new thing for us. We haven't gone through this before, right?
An RFP process?
An RFP
I know that for the
process for the-
planner, it hasn't happened since the 80s.
The 80s, okay. So I propose instead maybe, I don't know, a workshop or something like that, that we discuss it in more detail. Paul, I know you were on the planning commission. Is there any insight from having had been on the planning commission that you can add to the RFP process that we should incorporate or not incorporate, or steps we should take?
I really don't think there's any connection between being on the planning commission and the RFP. The RFP is more of a purchasing agreement that states what the city is actually looking for, what qualifications we want to include with a provider of the services. So I think, and they did a good job in telling, the history of the city and kind of what we're looking for. And then from there, you really just want to point out the information that you want to obtain from this service provider. So I don't think it's more from a building safety standpoint, an internal standpoint, than from planning itself, because planning is just an oversight board, which is important, of course. I don't mean to denounce that. But I think as long as we're saying strictly what we need from a planning provider, we're good.
Some of the things that I liked that were in B and C were the things like asking about any litigation against you, or asking what kind of capital improvements you were going to make going forward. And I think those would be key things to sort of pull into our draft to ask, so that we're asking, digging a little deeper into the caliber of the organization. And then I also, Proposal A suggested that we were taking not just organizations, but individuals also, and I don't think that we had discussed looking at individuals. I think we wanted to stay with the broad concept of an organization, so that if something were to happen to any one particular person, we have the whole bank of the organization to draw from, to continue services. So I think there's additional questions. Am I alone in that thought?
No, I'm a little concerned as well about the selection process, and really where it says make formal presentations to both the city council and the planning commission for final selection. That's not really clearly defined as to what the plan there is for the selection process. I mean, does everybody on the city council and planning commission have an equal vote in determining who is finally selected? Is planning commission voting and council voting separately? And I just, that process concerns me slightly. I actually want the input of our planning commission on this selection process, but where it says for final selection, I really think that the final selection, resides with city council. So I'm a little concerned about the verbiage there.
And if, I think it also states that the zoning board of appeals would be included, and
Yes.
they should be. If you're including one
Yeah.
group, you should be including the other. And perhaps the best idea would be come up with a committee that reviews these, that includes someone from each organization, not everyone in its entirety, because there's no need for that, but just for a good representation, so that people feel that they have an input. But at the same time, I was on planning commission when we lost a planner, and we did not have any input about whom was coming in their replacement. So I don't know where this comes from. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Just trying to make sure that whatever precedent we set with whom determines what is something we want to live by completely.
And it's this process is unusual in general. Typically, when we engage a contractor, the recommendation from the RFP submissions comes from city staff. If I'm not mistaken, I think that's typically where the recommendation comes from. So this process is a little more intensive than we typically undertake when selecting a contractor.
Madam Mayor, may I interject with
Yes,
two?
please.
In the selection process, the first sentence does discuss that in the interview process with a panel of members made up. We don't outline that. Now, would it be agreeable if that is just merely stricken from the RFP and that you can say based at a committee, whatever? Because does this have to be, we put that in there when we were looking at this and reviewing it, because I remember at the last meeting you had asked about that, and so we wanted to show that we heard you and we wanted to put that in there. The wording, of course, can be changed, we understand that. But I don't know if in the RFP particularly, if you just want it stricken, if it doesn't need to be in there.
Doesn't need to be in there.
I was
So,
going to say, from an RFP standpoint, is that something that's
Yeah.
typically in there? Is
Because at a
telling what
committee,
the
you can
selection process
establish
is?
the process however you want. That's kind of exclusive of, of this, but I guess it depends on your viewpoints on that.
Because I think if it's stricken, it gives this body some time to determine what the selection process will be.
Yeah.
And so that selection process paragraph does not have to be in there. I think
No, it
we
doesn't.
strike it all together. It would just be my recommendation.
Because even
And then-
at the next council meeting, you could, at that point, because since we're within the time frame of when we're getting them, you could set the policy, or even after, at any point, you could do the process. And still having that time frame where we're actually getting the proposals in.
And just to be clear, the Planning Commission and zoning boards don't have authority
No.
for this selection process. The city council does, but at the same time, I really value the input of the Planning Commission and zoning board on this. They'll be working with this contractor more closely than we will, most likely. So, and they're they're important to us. So I actually crave their input on this. But again, the authority resides with council on this whole process.
Yes, I'm not disagreeing that there's a selection process that, looking for some input from that group. I just don't know if we need to include that in the
Yeah.
RFP,
I agree.
and if we've really nailed down how we want that process to work out. So I would like to see it removed, just that section for now, and we'll discuss the particulars later.
I kind of agree with Sue, too, that we had, a couple of the other versions had some really good verbiage in it as far as just a general RFP that we might want to include in this, because I feel like the first one is extremely personal towards the city, and for an RFP, you really don't have to be that personal for it. But one thing I would like to see in the list of submission requirements is the current capacity of the submitter's overall workforce, like what their current capacity is and what they could support with us, so that we know we're not getting someone who that's stretched and perhaps wouldn't have the ability to serve us the way we would want to. And then there are also other statements in here that state that there are maintain regular office hours and prompt consultation when off-site. So you might want to state exactly how many office hours you expect here at City Hall. So if it's a day, you put in a day, or if it's a half a day or whatever, so that they know to plan that in. And then when you talk about participating in regular development team meetings, you may want to state that those are held weekly or intentionally weekly. And I just had things like that.
So sort of to that end, do we want to remove the "or individuals to provide planning services"? Do we want to only look at consulting firms?
I personally feel more comfortable with that.
I do, too.
Just, we all have family emergencies and things that we need to attend to personally, and the city is really a dynamic place right now, and a lot of things going on, and I don't want us to suffer because we have one individual that's providing all those services. And so I like the fact that you have a team behind an individual that can help out if need be.
I do too.
And I have one more annoying one. Under the introduction, we state that there is an expectation that the consultant will be imaginative in providing to the planning committee. I would like to switch imaginative for innovative, just because I feel like it's more of a work word, and imaginative scares me.
You imagine
I see
things when you
cakes
hear
and all kinds of
imaginative?
weird things. Innovative means you're on the cusp of something and you're thinking outside of the box, right? Anyone with me?
That is what that means.
So is this something that you can tweak a little bit, Mr. Smith, and then send something back for us to look at the next meeting, or?
That's up to,
I think, yeah, I mean, maybe, I mean, some of the things that we've had here, and then, like I said, the things I wanted to pull in were some of the aspects about litigation potentially against your firm and what kind of infrastructure investment you have planned going forward, and some of those things from the other exhibits I think are worthwhile to include in ours. Does anyone have anything else, or do we want to send them to him, or how?
Well, yeah, is an acceptable process then, maybe each of us individually send, and Mike, sorry for this, but each of us send maybe some of the things that we would like to see changed. And then, you know, if you have questions to each of us individually, you could do that, and then maybe bring something back next time incorporating the changes suggested. Is that?
I think that's a great idea.
I like that. Do we need to vote on that, or can it
Well,
just
so
be?
there's a motion on the table.
So we all need to, so do I make the motion to remove the motion to approve it, or do we all vote no?
Either way. well.
Oh,
Your motion is basically refer back to the clerk
So
for revisions and later submission.
So
So we
make a
need
new
to vote
motion.
on her,
New motion.
amend her
So-
motion.
So withdraw the
Madam Mayor-
previous
yep.
motion.
Madam Mayor, I move that my previous motion to approve a proposal be withdrawn, and a new motion be entered into revising the proposals for future consideration.
Support?
Is that a question?
roll call, please.
Councilmember Albrecht,
Yes.
Mayor Woolley,
Yes.
Councilmember Ayers,
Yes.
Councilmember Milan,
Yes.
Councilmember Moffett.
Yes.
Do you need anything else from us, or is it clear, Mike? Clear as mud?
We'll figure it out.
Okay. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is consideration of approving a resolution amending the charter amendment language in the Charter Proposal 18-1, which was approved in CM 07-146-18 for submission to the electors of the city at the general election to be held on November 6, 2018.
Madam Mayor, I move the resolution amending the charter amendment language as noted in Charter Proposal 18-1, which was originally approved in CM 07-14618, be approved and submitted to the Michigan Attorney General and Governor for approval.
Support.
This is essentially changing the word from authorized to required based on the recommendation of the Attorney General's office.
Third time's the charm.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Woolley,
Yes.
Councilmember Ayers,
Yes.
Councilmember Milan,
Yes.
Councilmember Moffett,
Yes.
Councilmember Albrecht.
Yes.
The next item on the agenda is consideration of approving a resolution for a property disposition proposal for submission to the electors of the city at the general election to be held on November 6, 2018. This is looking to put the decision on selling Renshaw Apartments to the voters on the November 6th ballot.
Madam Mayor, let me just indicate that I provided a legal opinion to you, and many of the residents are here tonight who would like to probably speak on this. Regarding that, the sale of this kind of property, which is city-owned, is required under the Clawson Charter to be submitted for public vote, because it says anything over $2 per capita must be subject to a public vote. And you have attached a proposed ballot proposal and some background information from the city clerk. And you have background information from myself in connection with this institution, which really was created many, many years ago for a beneficial purpose. The unfortunate thing is that increased expense continues with it. We've not had any major legal issues with it, but the funding operations of the city are increased every year regarding subsidization of this particular facility. And rent is intended to be at a low a rent because that was initially the purpose. We haven't been able to find anything in the records regarding the establishment or purpose of this particular building. I do know that, and I put in my letter, that there were 30 transfers of property to the city that encompass the base of this particular parcel, and they were done in 1940, 1980, and a little later. There's no condition on those deeds at all. There's no evidence in the records when those deeds were received to indicate any conditions that would suggest that this has to be continued in perpetuity by the city. In order to do so, though, you need to have appraisals. You've received information on what the appraisals are. It is a substantial 6 figures on this, and that's not the reason for selling it. It is basically, how can you continue to manage it? You don't have an elevator in it. You have capital improvements that are going to continue or increase because the building is getting older. And so the question becomes one of, can the city afford those ongoing expenses annually as well as capital going into the future? So this is basically a business decision. There's a lot of emotion that's attached to this, which is realistic. And I think that the residents are here to comment on that. And again, I have to say, and lawyers have a tendency to say this on difficult issues, this now becomes a business decision. I've given you the legal ramifications. Now it's a business decision.
We need to make the motion before we have discussion.
I believe so.
All right. Your Honor, I move the resolution to place the property disposition proposal before the electors of the city on the ballot for the general election to be held on November 6, 2018 be approved.
Any support?
Or can we start the discussion?
Not without support?
Okay.
Okay. Motion dies. So the next item, so at this time, it will not be placed on the November ballot.
And just as a point about that, Mr. Smith, in order to get this item on the November ballot, it would have had to have been submitted by August 14th, correct? So because it was not approved tonight, it will not be appearing on the November ballot.
Correct.
Okay.
In response to some of that, we probably at the next budget workshop, we will be discussing the management, the other issues that Mr. King had brought up as well.
And we don't have to wait that long.
No, we don't, but I'm saying to have final, basically over the next few months to discuss it and then have it in the budget, whatever, if there are any changes or any future considerations, not necessarily for the sale of the property, just for the management, capital improvements, whatever might be involved with it.
Right.
Can I make a comment in regard to the subject matter this time? Is it appropriate? I just want to say to the public that's here, I personally feel that there's a lot of questions and things we need to look into before we make a decision to put it on the ballot, on what type of stipulations and sales, if we were ever going to do that. And I think those questions need to be answered by this body before we put it to the public. And so we have a clear answer on why, how, and what the process will be. So that's why I did not feel that it was the right time. Okay, next item on the agenda is consideration of approving and receiving the filing of a proposed 5-year budget forecast for the city of Clawson. Mr. Pollack, would you like to speak?
Well,
Don't we have to
that?
make a
I
motion
guess
first?
the first thing I should do is thank you all for your patience for this document. I've been working on it for almost 2 years. The good news in the 5-year forecast is, in the general fund especially, is I use conservative numbers, and it shows a surplus each year. a biggest reason for that is the pension obligation bonds freed up monies that would have otherwise gone to the pension, which is good. I did figure in expenses as I estimate over the next 5 years as well. And like I said, the good news is it does show nothing large, but it does show surplus, which, as we know in doing the budgets over the last several years, it's been very difficult to get surpluses. So, all in all, it's a good document to in this case, receive and file, and it will be a document that I update annually. It'll be something that you look at and will be asked to approve each year. To make it a rolling budget document will be difficult. I would propose we do a 3-year rolling budget. Those numbers will be a lot more accurate, but there's nothing wrong with having a 5-year forecast and then, I guess technically rolling it, because each year as results come in, those numbers are updated, and then I add another year to the end. So it could be a document that you utilize, I guess if you wish to, utilize it in the actual budget process, but it would be something that each year I can update and submit to council for approval. I would recommend, as far as a working document for the budget, that we focus on a 3-year, because it'd be much easier for me to target 3 years as opposed to 5. But again, I don't think this is a bad document to have and to review and make part of the process.
Madam Mayor, I move the resolution approving the receiving and filing of a proposed 5-year budget forecast for the city of Clawson be approved.
Support.
No.
So get me right,
Questions and comments?
Mark, you're going to do a 5-year budget,
Yes.
but we want to really do a 3-year budget.
Well, as far as
Which is
referring to a rolling budget, in other words, one that we go with each year. When you approve the budget each year, you usually approve 1 year. We've never done anything beyond 1 year. I've done a 3-year forecast in the past, and now we have a 5-year. As far as the functioning document that you approve annually, you always approve the upcoming year. But we can add to the process a 3-year rolling document. In other words, I'm budgeting out 3 years, council approves that, and then each year it's amended by adding the 3rd year. And basically, the auditors accept or approve the numbers of the year that just happened. So the document you would approve during budget each year would be a 3-year document, is what I'm recommending. But you will still get a 5-year forecast, which again, I would recommend you receive and file, but the 4th and 5th year are going to be, educated guesses as they are now. As far as a working document, I think a 3-year makes more sense. But this is a document you will continue to get every year now.
Okay.
Mr. Pollack, so you use the term forecast to describe this
Right.
document. It's not a budget per se. It
Right,
doesn't. It's
exactly.
not binding. It's not that, like you said, that happens at our annual
Right.
budget meetings.
Exactly.
This
And
is
you usually lock in 1 year, technically lock in or approve a budget for 1 year. As a working document, a 3-year rolling budget makes sense because you're looking at 3 years of numbers. But again, as each year closes and you roll forward, the 3rd year will change. The middle 2 years may even change. But it's as things happen, you take, in the end, you come up with a fund balance projected, and then as that number changes, you roll forward into the 3rd year. So, but you're right, it's not a budget, it's a forecast.
And this is the forecast that you, as our finance director and city manager, have recommended.
Exactly.
So I know one of the reasons that the 5-year forecast has been requested is so that we can do some financial strategic planning. We have a lot of infrastructure issues and projects that we need to undertake, and we need to understand the monies that we're going to have available for that. And as I look at this, you've suggested that we have a surplus, but yet I don't see, can you explain what kind of trend, inflation or whatever that you've put on some of the costs, just looking at it real quickly? I, of course, because it's my thing, right, I always gravitate to health and welfare benefits, and I see you holding those consistent over the next couple years, which isn't realistic, but I look at some of these other costs, which I see being exactly the same year over year without any sort of application of at least inflation. So can you talk about the methodology that you used or what kind of trend you applied to some of these other costs over the 5 years.
Yeah, I guess what I'll call payroll benefits, employee benefits, I incorporated a 2% increase. I also incorporated expected retirements where I could, where individuals are going to leave and new hires come on. So it's not completely consistent because there's some departments where I know someone's going to retire. There may be a lower cost in that department, so I've incorporated that in. The line items that are holding the same are generally controllable items that I would call them. We have expenses, operating expenses in Clawson. I've been here 18 years now. I've done 18 budgets. We have numbers that are exactly the same as they were 18 years ago because they're within our control. And when we get close to those numbers for operating supplies is one I use, we don't spend anymore. So we stay within that range. Some of the revenues, the same thing. They have trends, like our property tax. It's hard to predict. We have a Headley rollback each year. Property values, we're going up double digits, but we were seeing an increase in property tax revenues of around 2%. So somewhere between 1.5%, 2% is what I use for adjustable revenues, ones that move with inflation. Some of the line items for revenue I kept the same because the trend is they don't move very much. So I kind of analyzed really line item to line item.
So computer supplies, you're anticipating that they're going to stay the same over the next 5 years?
Yes, that's for us a controllable expense that if we put a certain number in there and we get close to the number, we don't buy computer supplies.
But there's things like toner and whatnot that goes up, so you're going to stop printing if you run out of money?
No, it's just, those are controllable expenses, like I say. I've got 18 years to look at, and they don't move very much.
Public utilities, you expect there's going to be no increase in public utilities over the next 5 years?
Depending on the building, yes.
And you anticipate there's no increase in building maintenance?
Yep, and those are other numbers again. Those are beyond our control, and they tend to fluctuate when we have a good year, we have a bad year. Unfortunately for Jenny in the library, they have bad years every year, so as she knows. But
Don't blame Jenny.
I guess for it to be usable, I would look at, there's some sort of application of trend to some of these things that are subject to inflation and market costs that are outside of our control. It's not realistic to say that we ran out of computer money so that we're not going to buy any more supplies to that end or for that market. You need to apply at least some sort of inflation or market trends for some of these line items to make it a realistic document. Otherwise, it was a exercise just in 2 years coming that we are going to just file in a drawer. And I think one of the things that this council really needs to focus on is some financial strategic planning. We have a lot of things that we need to get done, and we're looking for tools and resources to do that. And I don't look at this, to create something just for us to stick in the drawer doesn't help us to that end to plan for our future. And so
I object because I spent 2 years on it so that the numbers would mean something. I'm not throwing numbers at you that aren't realistic. They are. I've done numbers for 30 years. And these are realistic numbers. You may not agree, but the only way you're going to know is look at results. And I've done 18 budgets here, and I'm not very far off any year. So I give you budget amendments to make, generally on uncontrollable expenses, but I'm pretty accurate, and I feel the numbers you have are accurate.
I guess to that end, on those uncontrollable expenses, the way to plan for those is to look at market trends and apply those to the budget so that they're not unexpected.
Which I believe I've done. I mean, not all of them, but some of them I've done that.
I guess, so yeah, for me, it was things like where are we going to get more infrastructure money and how, so those sort of things is what I was looking at. In 5 years, what will we be able to do with that? And we all know that the status quo on our road money is not good. And maybe that's something that is discussed in the future meeting and those options that I know that we are going to be having a presentation in regard to infrastructure and roads and some of our options. But I guess that sort of information I think we really need to include in something like this.
Sure, in
those future monies.
The surplus numbers each year is, if everything works out, if all the numbers work out, which we know won't happen, but we've been pretty close, the surplus money you have, you can use on whatever you want. If you want to put $100,000 a year aside of general fund monies for infrastructure, you can do that. There's going to be years where we may anticipate a small surplus and we have a huge surplus. and that additional money can go toward it. So it's hard to predict, but you could take every general fund surplus that I show in 5 years, you could put reserve for capital, and that money could be put aside in the budget. And then each year, if we have extra, that money can be put aside. Because I know it was suggested maybe we start saving surplus monies and use that on infrastructure, which you certainly could do. But it will take a while. And you're absolutely right. The workshop to show, you know, the dollars, the sheer dollars that we're going to have to deal with over the next 5, 10, and 20 years is you know, extremely high. But we've got to figure out a way to plan for that for the residents to continue to do the roads and the water mains and the sewers. They have to be done. And that is going to be part of the process.
And so this is a living, breathing document, so as those presentations happen, we can plug that information in here
Yes.
and see what the effect is on our budget.
A 3-year budget, if council wishes, will have a reserve for infrastructure, if you wish. Rather than a surplus, it will be a reserve for infrastructure to a dollar figure. Again, every one of those surplus dollars could be a reserve for infrastructure.
Any other comments? Questions? Okay. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Ayers?
Yes.
Councilmember Milan?
Yes.
Councilmember Moffett?
No.
Councilmember Albrecht?
Yes.
Mayor Woolley?
Yes. The next item on the agenda is, where are we at?
Turn the towns.
That's what I
Item
thought.
10.
Is a proclamation to consider painting Clawson Town teal for September 2018. This is in regard to ovarian cancer is the deadliest of the gynecological cancers and the 5th leading cause of cancer deaths among women. Members of the Michigan Ovarian Cancer Alliance participate in a national campaign called Turn the Town Teal and are requesting our permission to turn Clawson teal for the month of September. There's no cost to the city, and all the materials are provided by the MIOCA. And I will note that they are actually biodegradable teal ribbons that they place on all the poles. Once again, this year, they are proposing a campaign to tie teal ribbons around the lampposts in downtown area of Clawson, as well as to put up flyers in local businesses and pass out brochures and symptoms cards. My recommendation is that we approve this resolution that September 2018 as Turn the Town Teal Month in Clawson. And I did a little bit of research, and Clawson's been a participant, I believe, since 2014, which was a milestone for the organization because that year was the year that they had participation in all 50 states. So Clawson has been with them for quite some time. So I'm hoping that we support this resolution.
I'll support it.
Your Honor, I move the resolution proclaiming September 2018 as Turn the Town's Teal Month in the city of Clawson be approved.
Support.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Milan?
Yes.
Councilmember Moffett?
Yes.
Councilmember Albrecht?
Yes.
Mayor Woolley?
Yes,
Councilmember Ayers?
Yes.
and the motion carries. The next item on the agenda is consideration of designating a delegate and alternate at the city's official voting representative to the 120th Annual Michigan Municipal League Convention held in Grand Rapids, Michigan from September 20th through 22nd, 2018.
That's
May-
amongst the council.
Pardon me?
You have to decide amongst which council member. Or choose not to.
So, we just have to pick a delegate to do that. Does anybody have a recommendation?
This is for Thursday through Saturday, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
September 20th through 22nd.
Now, were Mark or Mike planning on attending the MML conference?
Generally, it's, I believe it's a elected official that,
Right.
I would love to go if nobody else is going to go. The MML conferences are a great resource. But I got to go the last time, so if somebody else would like to go, I would step away.
Madam Mayor, I move that Mayor Debbie Woolley be designated as the delegate, with Mayor Woolley being the official representative to cast the vote for the City of Clawson at the 120th Annual Michigan Municipal League Convention in the Ambassador Ballroom at the Amway Grand Plaza Hotel in Grand Rapids, Michigan, from September 20th through 22nd, 2018.
I have a question. Is he the alternate?
The document from the MML suggests that that we should, they request us to designate a delegate and, if possible, to designate an alternate. So,
I'll volunteer to be the alternate.
There we go.
All right.
do I amend
Support.
my motion?
Support on that, too.
And Councilwoman Moffett as the alternate.
All right.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Moffett,
Yes.
Councilmember Albrecht,
Yes.
Mayor Woolley,
Yes,
Councilmember Aris.
Yes.
Councilmember Milan.
Yes.
and the motion carries. The next item is consideration of appointing Michael Smith as the officer delegate and Mark Pollock as the officer alternate to the 72nd Michigan Employees Retirement System, or MERS, annual meeting in Grand Rapids, Michigan, from October 4th through 5th of 2018.
Your Honor, I move that Mike Smith be designated as the officer delegate and Mark Pollock as the officer alternate for the City of Clawson to the 72nd Michigan Employee Retirement System, MERS, annual meeting to be held in Grand Rapids, Michigan from October 4th through the 5th, 2018, and the cost incurred be paid by the city.
Support.
Were there any questions or comments regarding that? Were you already planning on going, Mike and Mark?
Yes, I was, yes. It was a great learning experience last year, and I look forward, as in my human resources functions, to learn more about retirement.
Okay.
For other people, right?
For other people.
Yeah.
Not for myself. I have years and years ahead of me.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Albrecht,
Yes.
Mayor Woolley,
Yes.
Councilmember Aris.
Yes.
Councilmember Milan.
Yes.
Councilmember Moffett.
Yes.
And the motion carries. The next item on the agenda is consideration of the list of bills as presented.
Madam Mayor, let's pay the bills.
Support?
Were there any questions on the bills? Roll call, please.
Mayor Woolley,
Yes.
Councilmember Aris.
Yes.
Councilmember Milan.
Yes.
Councilmember Moffett.
Yes.
Councilmember Albrecht.
Yes.
And we're going to pay the bills. City Attorney's report, please.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, I have a query of you that I hope you'll be in favor of. Several weeks ago, before the Planning Commission, when Talk of the Town was up, I made a proposal or a suggestion to the Planning Commission that we defer any action on that because we were going to more address significant traffic problems in that area. And so they did do that. I have followed through on gathering information regarding the situation. The administration had a proposal about the use of a parking lot at Clawson Church. I've been able to identify there may be some issues involved that make that impractical at this time. But that doesn't mean that the issues shouldn't be addressed and possible solutions examined. And in discussion with the city manager, very brief I might add, I'm going to propose with your concurrence that the city manager and I and maybe other officials in the city engage in meeting with the appropriate parties, meaning Woodpile, Talk to Town, others, to try to come up with a resolution. There are some avenues that could be explored that might help the situation. I'm not encouraging anything that talks about the city expenditure of money or city's direct involvement, as much as it is coordinating a realistic approach from those who are more affected about how they can have some control over the process and how the city might be able to accomplish that without the expenditure of money, but there's something there that will provide that opportunity. So I'd like your authorization for for Mark and myself to be involved in that process and meeting with the appropriate parties, and then reporting both to council and the planning commission the outcome of those discussions.
That's where we started a couple of weeks ago, right? That's what we wanted.
Yeah, I
that's
started
what
a
was
couple weeks
original.
ago, and I'm just filling you in. And the latest information I've conveyed to you regarding the situation at the Church of Clawson from a title standpoint, which complicates things, but I look at that just as another issue to try to settle. And so I think, though, if we had a focus on it with your direction and administration involvement, I think we might be able to really posture some results here.
I can understand us being part of the mediation process, but I do not want to see us drafting agreements between individuals to solve their business problem. I mean, overseeing documents that they create and maybe helping them with some direction as a mediator. I understand that, but I don't have sympathy, you know, I have sympathy for those that are businesses that are impacted by this, but at the same time, I don't know that, I know from a money standpoint, we just want to make sure that it's,
Yeah.
we're
No, I
just part of the
sense-
solution, but it's not our
Yeah,
solution.
I sense your concern in that regard. But again, I think it's an opportunity where government can step in and mediate, really. And as you know, I've been a mediator since '88, so not saying that I can do anything, but I think I know the process and the issues that might get people to look at resolutions that they themselves can be involved in. We might oversee it from the language to make sure that they're assured of completing what they agree to, but I think having that direction from the city does send a message that we're not ignoring, but within the limits and the authority that we have, we're trying to work with them. And that's basically what the message is here.
But you're basically just fostering a relationship.
Absolutely.
Trying to encourage them to work together.
Absolutely, because you're going to have more problems later on.
Right.
You've got parking issues coming up. So if we start this now, we're going to be able to get experience in the discussion and ideas, attitudes, opinions, perceptions that might iron out other issues later on. That's the whole name of the game.
And this is not just a business issue. It is affecting residents in the area pretty
No.
severely at times. And it's a traffic flow issue, which really is something we need to keep an eye on. So
Yeah.
I am fine with your involvement to the level discussed.
All right, thanks.
I would just want to echo what Mayor Woolley said, is that and Councilman Milan said, that our role needs to purely be to shepherd the conversation, to facilitate discourse and discussion, but we shouldn't be actors in the settlement in any way, shape, or form. So we're not drafting documents, we're not making any purchases, we're not actors in the settlement. We need to have these two businesses reach a conclusion, an amicable conclusion on their own with us shepherding that
I
conversation.
think we understand the direction.
Great.
Thank you.
I think as a city, we're doing the right thing by try to help out the businesses, because these businesses give to us
Right.
everything
Right.
all year long. Excuse me, John, my question would be, with the Royal Oak bike trails and whatever's coming down the road, isn't that going to help us?
That is going to help,
Or
but
just
you
H in the
need to
hall?
look at the time frame, how many additional parking spaces you get, impact on the surrounding areas, other related issues that might arise. But that might help.
35 more parking places.
It is noted there may be additional 35 by whatever is done, but that's a decision you all are going to have to get involved in.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there anything else?
Nothing I have.
Okay. City managers report.
Just one mention, at the soccer board meeting, they updated us on increases in recycling, and Clawson is up 38% in the last 10 months. So, and our tonnage for rubbish is dropping consistently. So it shows that people are continuing to utilize those recycling carts, and we encourage it. And soccer is working on a They're in testing phase now for something on their website where you can actually go in and plug in an item, and it'll let you know how to recycle that, whether you can put it in the bin or not. And then what specifically you can do to get rid of it, and if it can be recycled. So it's going to be interactive, and it should be ready within the next month, is what Jeff McKean told us today. They've got testing going right now. They're going to send it out to some people in the community that they know would use it and test it out. So that's all I have.
I was at the dairy the other day. Great ice cream, by the way, which I bet all these kids right here would really like to have right now, rather than staring at us, right? Anyone? Mark, I was thinking the laundromat right there had their garbage out, because it was garbage night, and they all have those ginormo soap dispensers and stuff. They really need to be hit up for a recycle bin. I don't know if they have been or not, but it's a great opportunity because that's bulk right there. So, thinking on recycling.
I had a question. I know that we talked a little bit about BSNA training in the past, and I know that you mentioned that some was coming. I couldn't remember if were there dates affiliated with that?
Not yet. Susie's looking at training in the building department to follow the process through from the beginning to the end, both for the applicant and for staff. So BSNA will have a project tracking lesson for us so that we can track at any point in the process, whether it's the person in the process or staff, to be updated. So that's training she's looking to, I think she wants them here, so she's working to get them in-house.
So did we set any expectation deadline on that? I'd like to see us get that focus going. So just for council standpoint, the report that she does, I would love to see that reporting using the BSNA instead of the current spreadsheet option, because I think that it would, be helpful for her and everyone else in the process. And so I'm just looking next time to let us know if there's any, projection on when that's going to happen.
I asked her to have it completed by the end of September, so.
Okay.
Not to belabor our Sakra point, but I did see something recently that I was not aware of. With your yard waste that you put at the curb, they accept now fruit and vegetable scraps. So apple cores, banana peels. They have a list here. I'm not going to read it, but they don't want meat or eggshells or bread or anything like that. But fruits and vegetables can be
Compost.
Yeah, I had no idea. Am I the only one?
No, I saw
I
that
had no
too. That was
idea.
interesting.
Yeah, this time of year, watermelon rinds as well. You can put those in your yard waste.
Yeah, those always make my garbage bag really heavy.
Right?
Can we get that document to make sure that we have it on our city website and in the appropriate location? So we maybe frequently asked questions or if they're our recycling
I was excited.
area.
I don't know. I'm sorry.
I'm trying to think of,
Sacra does have a really spectacular composting program and facility, and then residents see it and utilize it. That black mulch, the compost that gets delivered to the DPW, that's a process of the yard waste and mulching that Sacra does. So they have a master composter who handles all that. I think they have a couple of them, in fact, so.
since we're talking about recycling, I know that the city sponsored some electronics turn-in days and that sort of thing, but I missed that day, and I had a couple of old laptops, which guys at Work A helped me take the hard drive out and drill a hole in it. But then aside from that, I did take my old laptops to the soccer facility. It was the first time I was there, and it was quick and easy, and there were people coming in and out, turning in all that kind of stuff. So if you miss that electronics recycling, it's super, super easy to pop it over there on a Saturday. They're open till like 1, so it was really cool.
And they do encourage that because all that stuff gets recycled. They have vendors to take all of the electronics and get recycled. We take stuff regularly here over there as well that we have at City Hall. But yeah, you'll find when that interactive app is available, you'll find out a lot of things. They take, doesn't sound like much, but 1,000 pounds of styrofoam, or 1,000 tons of styrofoam, which they can get in a truck but they're working on a process to compact that into 18-inch sticks that then a end user could actually take and pay us for. Because right now, we have an agreement with Dart Container to take the recycling for free. They don't charge us, and then we don't get any money for it. But if we can process it, we're looking at a process for recycling styrofoam. You still can't put that in your yard or your recycling container, but you can take that to Sacra as well. They get a lot of that over there.
Okay.
Mark, I got one question. DTE.
Well, thankfully, I haven't heard from anybody in a while, which means I don't think we've had many sporadic outages recently. Mike Palchesco is back, and I will follow up with him on tree trimming, because I was told that was going to be done in August. They have gone around and taken some trees away from wires in the right-of-way that we've had to take down because there's not much of the tree left. I am going to ask him to have DTE completely remove those, because when you're left with, one side of a tree, we have to go back and take that down, because it's not gonna, the tree's gonna fall over. So I'll get an update from him on their engineer status from the issues, and then I'll also get an update on tree trimming and get back with you on that.
Yeah, if we could get a list of, when I had my problem around the 4th of July, someone did call me and gave me a whole list of infrastructure issues they had planned for the city, and there was supposed to be a document forthcoming with all of that so that we could let residents know that things are scheduled and things are moving. So I'd like to see that as well.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is the city clerk's report, but before you do, I just want to say thank you very much for doing an excellent job yesterday in very trying circumstances. You made us proud on how you handled the stressful situation. I know it was a county-wide problem, but Mike and his staff handled it with grace. And so our polls were able to close at 8 o'clock because of the quick thinking and problem solving that Mike did along the way. And you get a big thank you from me in doing such a great job in your first election here in the city.
Second.
Second.
Yeah, you had a big one.
Second primary, or first primary. Thank you.
First primary. Thank you.
Madam Mayor and Council, I do have the following items. Of course, yesterday was the primary election. Per many reports, they are stating that more Michigan voters cast ballots in Tuesday's election than in any gubernatorial primary in the last 40 years. Wow. So we set a modern record for participation. It's still low when you look at the numbers, because we had average of, I think, 36% turnout, which when you look at that, but if you look at historical things, we were only averaging about anywhere between 18 and 25. So to go up to 36% is pretty substantial in a primary. Precinct 1 and 2, we did run out of ballots as those things, so we handled those situations. Thank you for the compliments, and I know we want to thank all the voters, of course, for being so patient. There was a lot that over at Kenwood stood in line probably for about 30 to 40 minutes while we were trying to remedy the situation. They were very patient. They had kids that were coloring on the floor on paper just to pass the time until the ballots came. We ran out a few times, of course, but we worked together to remedy it. And I want to reiterate to those individuals who voted by placing your ballot in the auxiliary bin, which I believe there's only a handful, they were counted. So everyone who worried about putting it in there, we do duplicate after once we finally have it. And then the Board of Canvassers up at the county will adjudicate all the results. Everything is good. So they will be canvassing now the next 2 weeks. I know we get a lot of questions about who won precinct delegate. The Board of Canvassers are the ones who decide that up at the county. So I do have all of the information out on the city website under the news. It has the Oakland County results, and they're all unofficial right now. That's the biggest thing. We want to reiterate that until the canvassers finalize the canvass, it's still unofficial. But you can check if you're a write-in candidate for precinct delegate. We did have a couple, and then we had, of course, people that were on the ballot. And I just want to reiterate that you're only as good as those you surround yourself with, and I couldn't have done all the work that I did without the great team of all the precinct inspectors that we have that volunteer from 6 a.m. until they were here till 11 p.m. with us along for the ride. So, as well as on the AV counting board, the receiving board, and my deputy Victoria, all of us, we work together as a team. So it's a big effort. They all played a great part in making this election a success. We had some minor bumps, but they're all learning lessons, and hopefully November will not have these issues. And if they do, you roll with it, and we'll make sure that we want to afford every voter the right to vote. We never want to turn anyone away. Everyone will have the chance to vote. So the election results, like I stated, are on the website. So that's that. So that's all that. And then just kind of parlay that. We are finishing up our first rounds of interviews. As some people probably have come in, we are down one person in the treasurer's office. We are finishing up the first rounds of interviews, and hopefully we'll move on. And hopefully in the next month or two, we might have a fresh new face that you'll visit when you pay your water bill. So we'll see. We'll keep you updated on that. We still do have an opening at the DPW, and looking for the second code enforcement officer. Those postings are on the website, so we're still accepting applications for those. And just so you know, some upcoming projects now that we have some downtime for a couple weeks, we'll start working on policies. That'll get my mind off the election until September when we have to deal with that stuff. So I did want to bring up a reminder that, because questions have come up in regards to, if I can get to it, that we do have an actual service for the public service request. I'm going to change it. So if anyone has any issues with sidewalks, with trees, with lights, with potholes, any type of things, dead animal, brush, overgrown brush, snow removal, of course, when it's that time, high grass, whatever it might be, I'm going to end up putting a little thing right in the middle there to make it more, I guess, noticeable. Because right now what you can do is you can go to I Want To on the home page, and then you can do send a service request. And so you can actually select which department that you want to do, whatever you think if there's a park issue, if there's a water and sewer, so that would go to DPW. If there's a police or fire issue for lights or crosswalks or whatever it might be, you can send it to them, put your email, your phone, type in what the issue is, submit it, and it goes to the responsible party. And then at the end, it will actually show up on the map, and then it'll show the pinpoint of where the issues are. And then you can watch it, and then it'll show the history of how things are acknowledged and how other things are going on. And then the departments have to respond to that, and then you can have an actual report, whether it be weekly, monthly, however, so we know. It's very similar to a couple years ago, we had See-Click Fix. That was a very expensive program after a while. So this one is all incorporated within our website, which is very similar to user friendliness. So just wanted to reiterate that to residents. I know some of those questions have come up because a code enforcement officer still gets old ones because See-Click Fix is a web-based system, so it's still out there. And if we're still based in the system, you still get those things. We'll still see some complaints that come in. And actually, if you go to their page, you can still see old ones. So this is just very similar to that. So I just want to reiterate that point.
I know we eat, drink, and breathe, city stuff. If somebody goes there and they're not sure which department to submit something to and it goes to the wrong department, do the people who receive these requests, do they have the instruction to forward that on?
At the next staff meeting, we will be reiterating all of that to forward it on to the correct parties. And they can also report, because once you go into that, if you go into this system, actually on the map, you can report an issue, and you can actually continue as guest, and you can actually report it anonymously. So you don't have to put your name or any information in there if you use this side. If you use the other side, then we want to know because your email is going to be attached. But you can actually report anonymously as well.
And council will be getting a report, so we will see when things are sitting there and they are not addressed.
Correct.
And so that we
However you want it. If you
inquire
want it
on-
monthly or weekly or bi-weekly, just so you know that things are getting addressed. So hopefully resolved.
If there are a bunch of anonymous reports this evening, it wasn't me. It wasn't me.
Asking for a friend.
Right. Mike, once we put in a request for an issue, do we get some sort of notification that it actually was received and sent to the appropriate department?
Yes, you or whomever it was sent to has to acknowledge it, and then you get the email bounce back that it was acknowledged.
Okay.
And then you have a situation where then you try and fix it, and it kind of goes to different levels until it gets resolved. So all along the way, you are fully aware of what is going on. So that is all I have.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any unfinished business?
I just have a question about, we had received an email this week in regard to the farmer's market. Is there any action that we can take on that, or how do we make sure that that doesn't die on the vine and move that forward? So the issue is that there was some money from the farmer's market that the foundation used to establish their establishment as a foundation. And the farmer's market has been struggling a little bit this year and would like to recoup that $750 so that they can invest in some advertising and whatnot to sort of revitalize, move forward the farmer's market. And so how do we get a resolution to that, or look into that, or what do we do?
Mr. Kingsept, I guess who are the board members? Did we have a hand in setting that up what resources?
Foundation was set up, years ago, and a board was appointed. And they're self-perpetuating. I mean, I haven't been involved with them at all since the creation.
How do we find out who the board members are of a
question.
nonprofit?
We will find that out.
I think that's our first step. We need to find out who the board is and then go from there.
Mark, do you know who's on the board?
I don't know. I know there's been a change. Travis Cochran originally was on the board and no longer is. But I will, John and I can find out who's on the board now.
Can you explain the board? Is that independent of the city, or is it what's
is
its association with the city?
It was set up, Clawson Community Foundation was set up, it's not a 501c3, do you remember?
Yeah, it's 501c3 for purposes of creating an entity that would be able to receive money and then use the money for the benefit of residents in the city of Clawson, like amenities and so forth, in the public ways, just as examples from my recollection. They always wanted to be in the position that they would not go out and solicit funding. That was...
But is the memorial being run through that?
Yes.
Yeah, the memorial is being run for that. That's the first time I've heard of something that active being promoted by them.
And wasn't the skate park money run through that as well?
I don't know that.
No?
It was not. It was run through the Royal Oak Community Foundation.
Yeah.
Somehow there's $750 that was put into that for the farmer's market.
I think it was originally the farmer's market had it, and they needed
And
some
something
money
happened.
to set up the account, and so they took the farmer's market money and used that as their deposit because the farmer's market didn't need it at that time.
The IRS filing, I don't know the dollar amount. I don't know if 750 is accurate, but I will reach out to Travis. I know he's still in the area, and ask if he has the paperwork from that when they established it. Find out how much the dollar amount was, and report that back to you.
Is it appropriate to ask someone from this foundation to come to the council and make a presentation on?
But they aren't bound by the city. It's a separate entity outside of the city. They had created this foundation. Because I remember when they created it, and so it was a way that many organizations within the city would be able to be a nonprofit without having to
Do their own 501s.
do all the 501c3 expenses on their own.
And the farmer's market's under the umbrella of the Chamber of Commerce, correct?
No.
I don't think so.
I think
It's
it's-
an independent.
Because I know the chamber used to always be involved in setting it up, that Mary Seams, or whatever her name was.
I think that she was just a volunteer that helped. It really wasn't a chamber event. It was just that Mary was there and was doing goodwill and discussing what the chamber did through the city when citizens were there, like other organizations, but it wasn't a chamber-sponsored event.
So is it just owned by the former Mayor Penny Lubes right now, or?
Kind of. I think it was her brainchild, and she continued doing that.
So if it's valuable to us, which it probably is valuable to most people, we need to address her concerns and allocate resources that we can to support this. So one of her questions was signage, that we have a sign shop internally, correct? DPW has their own sign shop?
They actually do have signs that were created a couple years ago.
Well, according to the email that we received, they're MIA, and I think and she's requested them, and apparently the communication was not great. She didn't get in very good responses. So could someone champion that and help assist her? Because this is a community-wide event, and it doesn't make sense to have people show up there every Sunday morning and then not have anyone available to just plop signs up at the corners, or not have the signs to plop up at the corner. We should support an event that's here that champions our people and then also brings other people in.
Well, and we do support it by the Parks and Rec people that are paid to assist, right? So, I mean, the city has a toe in it with putting our staff, to help assist with it.
2 hours, right, on a Sunday.
Right, yeah.
But it's a long day, and signage is important, and if we can do that part without a crazy cost to us, we need to do that to support them.
Yeah, what happened to the banner that went across 14 Mile?
I have no idea, Howie. I don't know what happened to it.
So I thought it was up
I think
once
Mary
this year.
reported that it was in rough shape, but I don't even know where they kept it.
How was that banner originally obtained, do you know?
I think the farmer's market paid for it.
Yes, they did.
So in attempt to hunt down the $750, the foundation's the first place to go to find out if they have money to repay it.
Yes.
And then if they don't have the money to repay it, then we need to find some other avenue to reimburse them for that. Or do we know the conditions under which the $750 was taken? Was it unconditional, or?
I believe the $750 has typically been used for music vendors and other expenses.
That's the
at
intent of
market.
it, right, but when it was taken from the farmer's market, I don't know however long ago, she said it was taken to start up the foundation.
It's probably about 6 years ago, I'm guessing.
So, I guess, under what authority was it taken? Do they have an agreement to pay it back? How do we get to the bottom
I
of all
think
this?
Mark's
reach
going to
out
get a
to
hold of
Travis.
Travis, because I know he was one of the original people as part of that organization.
Right.
And Travis was also involved in the starting of the farmer's market. So it was Penny and Travis both worked on the market project together in the beginning.
And just to put this information out there, there is a page on our website dedicated to the Clawson Community Foundation, and talks about its responsibilities as what they call themselves, a fiscal sponsor, which allows monies to be donated tax exempt to specific organizations or projects that they sponsor. Then they were founded in 2012, and their address is actually our city hall.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to get to the bottom of that.
Cool. That's all I have.
Anything else?
I wanted to say thank you to Mark and Barb Chambers and Jim Albus for addressing a couple of citizen concerns this week very responsibly and quickly, and satisfying the requests. I appreciate that. The citizens appreciate that. Good job.
People in Elmwood are going to get to sleep through the night now.
Right.
Were there any other items? Okay, on to new business. Friday the 10th, so this week, the Clawson Eagles will be doing a fundraiser that's open to the public, and the benefactor of that is the Clawson Youth Assistant Program. On Saturday, the Eagles will be doing a corn roast, hot dogs, and hamburgers fundraiser again for the Clawson Youth Assistants. I will come back to Mr. Aris to discuss his event.
All right. Well, I want to thank, we have Cub Scouts here, we got Boy Scouts here. You guys have all helped us out for the car show, and I want to thank you guys very much. You helped me out putting the flag up. At 1 o'clock, we
we have a little parade come down the street, and we have a 21-gun salute. The boys raise the flag for us there, and it's quite a very nice ceremony. And I appreciate all you guys, all the help you've done in years past. You're Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts now, so thank you very much. And I was told I have to put this up, and this is the last time I'm holding this up. All right? Saturday's the day. And come on down, and we got a good weather maybe this time. And I'm looking to see 5,000-6,000 people down there like we normally do. And come on down and have a good time. We do have some carts that can help some of the people go up and down the street. So come on down. We got T-shirts, we got everything there. Donuts, all the businesses have helped us out, sponsoring us. So they're gonna be selling all their hot dogs, pizza, hamburgers, everything we got down South Main. And so, hey, 20 years and, this is it. So come on down.
Thank you for putting such hard work and a labor of love for many, many years, Howie. This is the 20th year, correct?
Yeah, I gotta thank the Lions Club. I mean, we all do it together, and my golly, it's nobody leaves town that weekend. You're not allowed to. So, anybody interested, wanted to become a Lion, please let me know. But we do a lot for the city, and we do a lot for a lot of people. So, God bless Lions.
After Saturday fun down there in South Main, Farmers Market still going strong at the Clawson City Park. The Historical Museum is looking for ghosts and actors because they've asked to do a ghost walk in October. And so if you're interested in being a ghost or goblin for the City Historical Museum, get a hold of Melody Nichols. August 14th from 6 to 8 is the Clawson School Board's final superintendent interviews, and the public is encouraged to attend. I believe that is at the Clawson Middle School from 6 to 8 on the 14th. And the AOK Kids have doing a film camp for the individuals 8 to 18, and that is from August 20th through 24th. It's $200 per child, but reach out to the actingoutkids@yahoo.com if you're interested in participating in film camp. I think that's all I had.
I think this coming Monday, there's a concert at the library also. For the Friends of the Library.
Concert tonight.
There's one tonight, but there's also one next Monday from the Friends of the Library are sponsoring the something trio, something.
Okay. I'm guessing 6 or 7-ish?
Yes, 6-ish.
I did not see it on the website.
The music's not going, you can just pop in the library and read a book till it starts.
Anyone else have anything to add coming up? Okay, I guess now we want to open it up for public discussion. Open the floor, just come up to the microphone and state your name and address.
Andrew Hodges, 510 West Baker, and actually I'm going to speak as the president of the Clawson School Board of Education. I just want to go on about the August 14th date. We have 2 finalists left for the superintendent position. Their names are Nicholas Russo and Tim Wilson. Tim Wilson is coming from the Carleton School District, which is in the Saginaw area, and Mr. Russo is coming from the Bloomfield Hills District. They are both going to be here on August 14th, and we have an itinerary. And what's going to happen is they're going to come here and they're going to go through the schools, all 5 of the buildings, check it out with some of the staff of the school district. And then they're going to meet the interim superintendent for a few. And then they're going to tour the city, which they are going to be toured. Parents are going to be taking them on the tour of the city, which I am going to suggest that they come here and visit the city offices and get to know everyone around here. So that is happening on August 14th. And then from 4:30 to 5:30, we are having a meet and greet. and that's going to be taking place at the high school. I believe it's going to be in the media center and in the cafeteria, I believe. Right then, you're going to have about an hour to meet both of the candidates. They're going to be in separate rooms, so you can go there and meet each one. But the one thing I want to mention on this is that you are going to be given a piece of paper, and you're going to write your comments and what you think about these two candidates. And if you want questions asked, certain questions, you can write those questions down, and it's up to the president to decide which questions are asked, because there are some duplicates and some you just cannot ask. But you can get your questions asked. So that's why I really want to bring this up, because we are getting the feedback from the stakeholders. We want to know what you think about these candidates, because this candidate is going to be running our school and hopefully is going to have a relationship with all of you. So I hope each one of you guys can make that. And then they will have an interview. Each has a separate interview. And then after that, we'll have deliberation. And that night, hopefully, we will have our new superintendent. Now, personal matter. I noticed that we had some new crosswalk in the downtown area put in after the resurfacing. That's the fourth one, I think, of the crosswalks here, and we have two that are the same, one with flashing lights and one with a stoplight. They're all very confusing since they're all different. My thing about this is that when you have new signage, I'm pretty sure I'm correct on this, you have to put flags up, and they have to be there for so many days so everybody knows that there's new signs and there's new something going on. They did that for the new trucks, the new signs that you guys did for the trucks not being able to turn left, or I think. Well, there's no flags on these new signs. And to tell you the truth, I didn't even realize it existed until I had already driven over it. So with the trees there where it's located, I just was a little concerned if anybody else had noticed that crosswalk. That's my only concern. That's all I have. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, here's the thing on the Blair Memorial thing. If you'd like to.
The library,
Oh,
the 13th.
Monday at 7 to 8:15 at the gazebo. And it will be the Dawn Giblin Trio.
That's them.
That's it. And it looks like there'll be ice cream as well.
For purchase, I believe.
Treat Dreams will be there. 20% of the sales will be donated to the Friends of the Library.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anyone else for public discussion? And while this gentleman's coming up, I just want to say thank you so much for all participating here this evening and coming to be a part of the decision-making here at the city.
I'm Tom Glenn, formerly of 121 Renshaw, now 161 Knollwood. Renshaw was home for 18 years. When I first moved in there, one of the first things I saw was that the fire extinguishers had not been checked in 6 years. So as our landlord, somewhere along the line, the city kind of failed Renshaw. They really didn't there wasn't much interest shown by the council for the seniors. When I moved in there, I had the opportunity of having a lot of conversations with Chuck Palmer, who was the individual that built the place. And his hopes were that it would stay as a senior center and a low rent center. And I had these discussions because his mother moved in as my neighbor. And because of her condition, I sort of became a watch over her and had phone calls quite often with Chuck and his wife. Not everybody, well, you'll never really know the impact that Renshaw had on the seniors. At that time, there was several people in there that were having a hard time making it. I mean, not every senior has a good retirement and high Social Security. I mean, there are wives that have had husbands who really didn't have very good jobs, and then they ended up with low Social Security. For an example, Well, I was there one day, I had a knock on my door, and one of the ladies from upstairs wanted to know if I could change a light bulb over her sink. So I went upstairs and she didn't have any bulbs, I had some, so I got them and I changed the light bulb. And for some reason, she opened her refrigerator door and the refrigerator was empty. And I asked her, how come? And she says, I have a hard time paying rent, paying utilities, paying medication, and buying food. She says, I have to make a decision. Not to pat myself on the back, but for 6 months, I took that lady shopping every 2 weeks and bought her groceries until her daughter could make arrangements to take her from Renshaw to live with her. But she wasn't alone. There were some other people there in the same stage. Sometimes their families could help, sometimes they couldn't. But if it hadn't been for the low rent at Renshaw, I mean, where would these people have been? You know, so you got to kind of pat yourselves, and I say you, I mean the city council, who are our landlords, on the back for being able to do this for the seniors. Sometimes this city is our landlord. We had a power outage a few years ago, which lasted about 4 hours. We didn't receive a call from anybody wanting to know how we were making out. We had an individual in the apartment that was on oxygen and needed to get to an electrical source. So we were able to get them out, get them into a family home so they could have power. You know, excuse me, but I don't know what the definition of landlord is when it comes to situations like this, but I know in other places that I have rented, the landlords have been knocking on your door if there'd been a power outage, wanting to know what's going on. There's going to come a time when you folks are going to have to make a decision that maybe it's what's good for the city and what's right for the seniors. And I hope you stop and think that maybe someday you will be there and you will want a low rent facility, or your parents may want a low rent facility. So kind of keep that in mind. I mean, the seniors need help too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. And I know how involved Tom was over there, very much so. And if anything happens, whatever we're planning on doing, you know, you guys will be taken care of first. We're not tossing nobody out in the street or like everybody's thinking. So, no, we know we'll take care of you guys.
Anyone else? Okay, public discussion is now closed.
Madam Mayor, I move that we adjourn.
Support.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Councilmember Milan?
Yes.
Councilmember Moffett?
Yes.
Councilmember Albrecht?
Yes.
Mayor Woolley?
Yes. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.